Good evening, members, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening to our independent persons who are joining us online. This is the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on 1st December 2025. Unfortunately, our chair is unable to join us this evening, so members, I'm going to ask if there is a motion from the floor to propose and second a new chair for this evening. Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. I propose Councillor Nick Harvey to chair tonight.
Thank you. And is there a seconder?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Sage. Members, is that agreed? Thank you. Councillor Harvey, would you like to join us?
Good evening, councillors. I'm Councillor Nick Harvey. Could I please let you all notice that meeting is being live streamed this evening. In the event of any technical difficulties, the meeting will be recorded and uploaded after it concludes, making it available for viewing from the following day. Could you make sure, please, that all of your mobile phones are switched to silent? Welcome to the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. As I said, I'm Councillor Nick Harvey. Can I ask you all to introduce yourselves, starting from the left, please?
Good evening all, Councillor Carol Sage.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor David Thomas.
Good evening, Councillor Sue Brooke.
Good evening, Councillor Lorraine Bredding.
Good evening, Councillor Lorraine Larman.
Good evening, Councillor Ben Wimbledon.
Good evening, Councillor Lindsay McCarthy Calvert.
Good evening, Councillor Matt Cortez.
Good evening, Councillor Kate Knott.
Good evening, Councillor Diana Jones.
Thank you, and also welcome to our independent persons, Dale Phillipson and Jenny Beaumont. Cabinet member Michael Fuller is also in attendance.
Yes, good evening. I'm here, not a member of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, but I'm here in my capacity as portfolio holder for environment.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is apologies. We've received apologies from Councillors Ainsley, Edwards and Watson. Are there any other apologies?
Thank you, Chair.
Cortez?
Councillor Bowker.
Bowker, thank you. Everybody, thank you. Any members interested to declare? No, thank you. Item 3, the minutes. Are the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of November 2025 agreed?
Just as a point of note, the minutes are dated the 21st of October. Can we have that amended to the 5th of November, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bredding. The date has been amended. Everyone happy for me to sign the minutes? Thank you. Item 4, the review of the Council's grounds maintenance, street cleansing and building cleansing services. Mr Jarvis, would you kindly introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I hope you've had a chance to read through the report before you tonight, but as I'll provide a brief summary so we can make a start. So the report is a review of the grounds maintenance, street cleansing and building cleansing services, to address the needs of the borough, to report on value for money, the quality of the work provided by Pinnacle FM Limited, the workforce management and compliance by Pinnacle FM employees, effectiveness of the contract penalties, oversight of the contract by council officers and the portfolio holder for environment, and also the future service delivery options. This links with the council's priorities for health and safer communities, greener, a cleaner environment, and resident satisfaction. We love Castle Point. So the current scope of the service scope is grounds maintenance, which includes verge cutting, upkeep of our parks and open spaces, maintenance of our sports pitches, maintenance of our cemeteries, and maintenance of our triple SI sites. Street cleansing, so that would include litter removal, fly tipping, graffiti, bin emptying and sweeping, and building cleansing, which is cleansing of our housing stocks, communal areas, our public conveniences and council offices. The contract has been in place since the 1st of March 2023 and ends on the 29th of February 2028, but can be extended up to a maximum of 5 years. Current provider is Pinnacle FM Limited. And we have a statutory obligation to provide street cleansing under the Environmental Protection Act 1990. There are no other statutory requirements within the contract. Building cleansing was added in June 2023. In terms of the contract itself and some of the key findings, grounds maintenance, as you will see in the report, we moved away from the old height specification to a 20 working day frequency in this last year, and that has shown a drop of customer service requests from 181 the previous year to 29 this year. In terms of street cleansing, we have had 592 reports of litter. This is mainly from split waste sacks, but a ward-based cleansing process was introduced to ensure that we were hitting the hotspot areas within the borough. Fly tipping for 24-25, 917 reports, which were mostly made up of household waste, so that's stuff that people can't present with their weekly collection, so fridges, furniture, etc. And in terms of compliance, of those 977 reports, 99 were cleared within the contract specification. As I said, building cleansing was outsourced in June 2023 to the contract, and it was a bit of a shaky start as they took on sort of our staff, but that's settled down now and we're getting some positive results out of that. The current contract, when it was tendered, only received one bid, which was from Pinnacle FM Limited, but the pricing was benchmarked against the previous contracts and in-house costs, and generally speaking, this met those costs. Key performance indicators are meeting targets in the whole. So you have one for litter, and our target is 20% of unsatisfactory streets for litter. 13% was the target met in 24-25. Fly tipping, as I've already mentioned, 99% cleared within 24 working hours. Target is 90%. The only one that's under target at the moment is the street sweeping, which has a target of 90%, but last year only managed to reach 80%, but we're putting plans in place to try and improve that. And service requests, which are what residents report into us, we set a target of 90% to be completed within the contract timeframes, and so far they've completed 98% of those in the contract timeframes. In terms of compliance and penalties, there is a default system within the contract for which there is a £50 default cost. We've served 60 of these defaults since the contract started in 2023, and none of those defaults have then resulted in going on to a persistent failure, showing that the contractor is dealing with the issue as it happens. In terms of monitoring the contract, we have 6 officers who monitor our parks and streets, and as we've noted, we do regular inspections, including our KPI tracking. These are reported at monthly meetings with Pinnacle, which has a formal minuted agenda, and so we keep a record of everything that's been recorded. And obviously, I have weekly meetings with Councillor Fuller as the portfolio holder for environment, where we discuss the contract matters. As mentioned in the priorities, there is an option for us to look at the future service delivery post February 2028. There are 4 possible solutions. One is to extend the current contract. That brings cost stability, but does limit any specification changes, although we could look at some value for money with the contractor. There's an opportunity, obviously, to re-tender. That would mean we could revise the specification, but there is a risk of the service falling backwards during that transition, and obviously there's the risk of greater cost as well. There's the cost, there's bringing the service in-house. Whilst this will give us greater control, it does increase the costs on the pension side. And then there's local authority trading companies, which is similar to bringing it in-house, but you just set up a local company and you're not so restricted by the pension contributions. Key consideration with the future service is obviously the local government reorganisation, which comes into effect in April 2028, and decisions we made must align with the Shadow Unitary Council and their decisions under the Section 24 Financial Memorandum. So finally, risk and implications. There's no immediate financial implications, but future options may carry extra costs. Extensions will be done, if the contract is extended, it will be done on the same terms, unless we choose to vary those terms, but again, that might increase costs. From an environmental impact, the contractor is moving towards more electric vehicles. They currently have a fleet of a number of electric vehicles on their parkside, and they're looking at other options for weed control, moving away from chemical use, and they're also looking at other electrical items they can use for hand tools and the like. And as already said, for the purpose of local government reorganisation, any decision we make must not compromise future Unitary Council's sustainability. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvis. Members, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I can see that we've received a payment from Essex County Council for the adopted highway verge cutting and maintenance. Can I ask how much we've received? How much does it actually cost to do this work on their behalf? And also, when did this contribution last increase? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we originally would receive, since about 2005, £28,000 per annum. That was recently increased by a further 33,000 in negotiations with Essex. The total cost of our grass verge cutting is around about £250,000.
Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the number of split bags that we have to do, or Pinnacle has to deal with, has that increased since the quality of the pink bags have become thinner?
Not that I'm aware of. I would say, though, that the majority of our litter from split bags are from our black sacks. But obviously, as you'll see in the report, we're increasing our education through the waste and recycling team, and we'll be supporting them so that we do a broad education over the whole household waste collection.
Thank you. Looking through the report, there are a number of KPIs that have been missed, obviously. Nobody's perfect. But you make a point here that both Rochford and Southend City Councils have their own waste management companies. Have you looked into whether or not we can perhaps merge with them and adopt their companies in advance of looking at LGR?
Thank you, Chair. So Rochford and Southend Council's street cleansing contract is mixed in with their waste collection contract. Both those contracts end in 2032. We've kind of started to investigate a bit with them about how we could take that forward. But I think at the moment, until the sort of devolution and the unitary councils are decided, there's very little movement on that. I think that's one of the things that we would have to take into consideration. This contract allows us to extend up to a maximum of 5 years, so we could extend it in line with when their contracts end, to see if so that would help going forward. That would enable the new unitaries to build future contracts at the same time. I'm unsure if they've got any clauses where they can allow other councils to enter into it, but it's obviously something that we can investigate.
Carry on.
Just one further one. If you extend the contracts, say with Pinnacle, on an annual basis, is there any financial implications to doing that? Because obviously a longer term contract is obviously more beneficial. So would there be any financial implications?
So there are no financial implications to extending the contract unless we wanted to add something to it, which I wouldn't propose that we do. I wouldn't propose extending it on a yearly basis. I think that would bring a risk of they would see that as a risk to themselves, so they are less likely to put any value into the contract. I would suggest if we are going to extend, as I said, we extend up to 2032 in line with Southend and Rochford.
Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the fine that we implement to Pinnacle, is that money reinvested in environmental services, for example, or is it ring fenced to go to update some bins or some extra, I don't know, poo bins or whatever?
No, so the default financial default is credited off the monthly invoice.
Councillor Knott.
Thank you, Chair. The number of service requests reported per quarter are shown as meeting the KPIs, but they're referred to as reports from residents. Can you confirm that the recording of these service requests also includes matters that are raised by members as well? And obviously, if it's just reports from residents and not members, then the KPI compliance figures may not be accurate.
Yeah, so any request that comes in from a member, whether that's to do with litter or fly tipping, is then reported through the same process that residents report. So it goes through to our first contact team. It's then raised as a service request by the system first contact use. So all the data that I get at the end of the month includes residents and member.
Councillor Larman.
Yeah, to refer back to the question from Councillor Bredding, the Southend and Basildon, are they in-house or are they contracted services?
So it's Southend and Rochford, and they are contracted out services. Yeah.
Councillor Cortez again.
Last one, Chair. With regards to the fly tipping, do Pinnacle just collect the rubbish, or do they look for evidence of who may have fly tipped or employed someone that's led to fly tipping?
So every fly tip that they pick up is inspected for evidence. If it's a chair, obviously there's no point, but if it's sacks and stuff like that, they will look through the sacks and provide us with the evidence.
Councillor Bredding.
Just one other question on fly tipping. Do we know how much the fly tipping actually costs the council? Is there an extra cost, or is it included in Pinnacle's contract that they will just pick it up as part of that contract?
Yes, so all the costs for removal of fly tipping is met within the contract cost.
Any further questions, anybody?
Yes, sorry, Jenny Beaumont.
Sorry?
Independent person, Jenny Beaumont. That's it, yeah. Say it again.
Jenny Vermont, please.
Sorry, is that for me, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
Thank you. Sorry, the sound disappeared. Thank you, Mr. Jarvis, for the report. I found it difficult reading through it to try and answer some of the questions that you were posing at the outset in the purpose of the report, particularly around value for money. And that's because there was no comparative financial data by which we can draw a comparison in terms of looking at cost and outcomes. And the KPIs are only included, as far as I can see, for the year 24-25. And it would have been more helpful, I think, to have a track record to see how the contract has progressed since it was let in 2023. And I've got two questions. The first one is, in trying to establish value for money, have any alternative models of grass cutting been considered? I'm mindful that we've had a year with below average rainfall that would have had an impact and a consequence on the rate at which grass is growing, and yet the contract sets out a 20-day frequency irrespective of conditions. And I also wonder whether there's any exploration of partnerships or shared services with other Essex councils that may have been considered as part of the longer term plans for the service. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of your first question, in terms of value for money and grass cutting, so prior to this year, the contract specification was a height specification, so they had to keep it below 100 mil. This was causing problems, so we moved to the 20-day frequency. We've used this year as a kind of a test of the system, but we're aware that the weather we've had in this last year has probably benefited the grass cutting. Although we don't want to have a wet summer, it would be nice to have a wet summer from the grass cutting perspective, just to see how it performs through a wet summer. But the other options are that we can work with the contractor to agree to cease cutting for a period and move the staff onto other functions within the ground side of things, or we can look to see if the 20-day frequency needs to be reduced or extended. It's difficult to work with other sort of local authorities around us because they all do it slightly differently to us, although obviously we would look to, through LGR, when that eventually comes around, to work towards that. I can't remember what the second question was. KPIs, earlier data. Yeah, we can certainly provide data on earlier KPIs.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, anybody? Independent person, Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for just now, I couldn't get my mic to work. In terms of the discussion about the Rochford and Southend-on-Sea joint arrangements, I presume there's no intelligence with regard to whether they would even be capable of taking on additional work in, say, Castle Point. That's one part. And I think the other thing I was reflecting on was that do you have any information about the current company in terms of, do they employ local people? Because this would obviously be something that would be important to the council to consider in terms of any decision making.
Yeah, thank you. So I can say that Pinnacle, in a lot of their employees are local. Certainly, the area manager and the 2 service managers are local residents, and sort of most of the actual operatives are local residents.
Okay, and do you have any, sorry, follow up, do you have any intelligence about the possibility of the Rochford Southend partnership being able to accommodate additional work?
Not at this stage, but if that's one of the decisions that we need to take forward, we can review that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, if I may just provide some additional information to Ms Beaumont in terms of preparations for local government reorganisation. That kind of due diligence is exactly the kind of work that's being undertaken to prepare the transition plan. As Mr Jarvis has said, both Rochford and Southend have externalised services, but they're very different vehicles. The Rochford offer is a local authority traded company, a partnership with Norse. Southend is a fully external third-party contractor. So the complexity of unwinding those contractual arrangements, it would be significant. And in any event, from a geographical perspective, as you quite rightly identify, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is capacity at a managerial level to work on schemes outside of the geographies which have currently been contracted for.
Do members have any other questions?
Thank you, Chair. I've had a number of complaints over the years from residents in my ward regarding the quality of the grass verge cuts, and particularly that grass cuttings and more recently leaves are just left to clog up the drains and gutters. I can see that Pinnacle has been asked to put processes in place to ensure that specifications are met, i.e. clear cuttings from footpaths and roads. Can I ask, have these processes been put in place, and if so, what are they? And I can also say that the environment team will monitor compliance. Is there a record of what they've actually done to undertake physically monitor compliance?
So the process for grass cutting is quite clear in the contract. That's to clear litter before they cut, stream back at the end of the cut, and then blow any cuttings back onto the verge. Obviously, it's not a cut and collect, so whilst we'll always endeavour to keep the grass cuttings on the verge, that's not always possible. Strong winds might blow them off, but we are trying to ensure that's done. I know Pinnacle are looking at different types of cutting machine that will make the cuttings a lot smaller, so there's less chance of them blowing, or if they do blow, they don't clog up the surface water drains as much as possible. In terms of inspections, the team will inspect during cutting season. Will go around, and they don't follow the crews around, but they'll, because that's not the way we work, but they will go to areas that have recently been cut and they will check for compliance. And if there's no compliance, that's when we'll serve a default penalty.
Councillor Bredding.
On a follow-up note to Councillor Knott's question, there's been a number of issues of grass cuttings blocking the dikes or landing up in the dikes on Canby Island. And obviously those dikes are there as a flood area. So can something be done to try and ensure that the grass cuttings are not just blown straight onto the dikes?
So the dikes are managed by the Environment Agency, so that's not ourselves, but through the contacts I have with the Environment Agency, I do raise those issues when members raise them with me.
Councillor Cortez.
Following on from that, if the dikes are managed by the Environment Agency, surely there's some responsibility from Pinnacle that if they've done the cutting and it's gone in the dike.
Yeah, so I explained so that Pinnacle don't cut the dikes; they're cut by.
No. If they've cut the grass, is what I'm saying, and it's ended up in the dikes, surely there's some liability from them for cutting the grass around it that if it then ends up in the water, although it then becomes the Environment Agency's problem, they're the ones that have caused it.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to think of an area where Pinnacle cut that's close to an Environment Agency dike. So, but I can take that forward. We can look at what we do cutting nearby, but it would be similar to a verge, really. It's cut and not collected, so there is a likelihood that it would end up in the dike. So,
Any further questions, members? Thank you.
It's not a question, it's a note that I'm a volunteer for 2 voluntary groups on Canvey Island, and I honestly say that Pinnacle have been really helpful, and we work well with them, and they will help us in anything we ask them to do, clearance, and I recommend them.
Thank you. Members?
No, nothing to add from me, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, are there any specific recommendations that you wish to make to Cabinet? Councillor Breding?
I think I would just like to ask Cabinet to investigate whether or not the capacity for the groups that either use Rochford or Southend could be looked into, because either of those groups would have to employ more staff and would probably take on existing staff anyway that know the area. So I think the staffing side of it, although that's quite emotive, could be overcome. But I think it's looking at perhaps utilising experience and working with other groups.
Chair, if I may, Councillor Breding, it wouldn't be within Cabinet's purview to do that. It's being looked at as part of local government reorganisation. So as part of the due diligence that all 15 councils are doing, and depending on, of course, which configuration the government chooses, there will be an implementation and transition plan from the existing to the new councils. And so all of the contracts and all of the services will be pulled together as part of that. So it is not something that the council can do outside of that process, but I can give you the assurance that it's happening in any event.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, I've noted a couple of points which the independent person Dale Phillipson put forward, which I wonder whether members might like to consider as possible recommendations for Cabinet. So it is obviously recommendation number 1 is to note the contents of the report. Recommendation number 2, I've noted that the committee might want to consider the following: that the report to Cabinet details further data to show Pinnacle's performance over the contract period to date. And then a third recommendation, Chair, through you, that Cabinet resolves, so that the committee resolves that in order to improve the assessment of value for money, comparative data should also be provided in the report to enable a more detailed financial review by Cabinet. And again, both of those points picked up by the independent person, Mr. Phillipson.
Members, are you happy with those recommendations? Is the report noted?
So through you, Chair, if I can ask through you for that to be proposed and seconded and then voted.
Can we have a proposer for the recommendations put forward?
I'll propose it.
Seconder, please. Councillor Larman. Thank you. Members, is that agreed?
Thank you, Chair.
Item 5 on the agenda, update on the work of the Climate Policy and Scrutiny Subcommittee. Members, there is no update from the Climate Policy and Scrutiny Subcommittee. Item 6, work plan. Members, the updated work plan has been circulated. I've been advised that a further report on HMOs is likely to be scheduled for the February's committee meeting. Are there any further suggestions? Councillor Cortez. Councillor Thomas first.
Yeah, I'd like updates on the splash park area, please, to be brought to scrutiny.
You, Councillor Cortez.
Through you, Chair, if I may, perhaps Councillor Thomas, you can elaborate on what you're asking for, please.
So, since this council become independent, one of the promises to the public was we would save the splash park and renew it and invest in it, and we've heard nothing about reinvestment in the splash park, reopening it, contracts or anything, so I would like that discussed.
Chair, if I may, I will have, that's not a piece of work that we currently have at the moment, so I will raise that with the leader and come back to you if I may.
Councillor Cortez.
Yeah, mine was just for an update on what was the splash park as well.
Is that agreed, members? That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for your attendance. The meeting is closed at 7:37.